get exchange rate. This would be another function defined somewhere else, which would maybe go look in a database somewhere or do a call to some service or whatever that would give you the latest exchange rate and then return what the exchange rate would be, which let's say is changed to 480.
Can we define like above this function, gauge, a constant value for ARM82 and use this in the function?
Yes, but we have to talk about scoping, which I'll talk about next class. Yeah. Oh, I see hands. Yes.
I was wondering, is it possible to have a function that is not a constant but a let?
Yes. Yes, you can absolutely. You can do anything that can be a constant can also be a let. Is the short answer to your question. However, remember I said you should name things that do not change with a constant, and things that you think might change, okay, name those with let, right? Do you see really any purpose to ever like mutating the name of a function? Would you ever like magically change the name to a different? Okay, probably not is the short answer, right? If you do, so here's how you do it. Here's the best way to do it. Call everything const. Make everything a const. Only change it to a let if you feel the need later that you have to change it. Got it? Always use const wherever possible. Only use let when you absolutely have to. That's the rule. So if I see you guys creating something like this, like let a is, and then you never change a, I'm going to say that's a problem. Like, that should be a constant. Huh? Why? Good. Okay, so why am I asking you guys to use constants rather than lets? One thing that you might have noticed is that programming is not easy. It's easy in the sense that it's made of very simple parts, right? It's like if statements, functions, okay? I mean, none of that individual stuff, once you get it, is hard. What's hard is once you start putting it together. And once you start putting it together a lot, it becomes massive. Your operating system probably has something around 20 million lines of programming code, right, of this stuff in it. Imagine trying to manage 20 million lines of this crap. It's insane, right? Which is why, by the way, first of all, you never do that. Which is why they don't just write one big block of code. Instead, they put it into pieces, which they put together in functions, for example, separately. And then now they just have these pieces that they can combine together like Legos and build more and more complexity, right? That's where functions come into play. So the biggest barrier to writing good code is complexity. The more complicated the code is, the harder it is to make sense of it, the harder it is to understand it, the harder it is to write it correctly. You want to decrease complexity. You with me so far? Okay. What is more complicated? A name that has a value, okay, got it, A is 5. Okay, I understand, A is 5. But then I were to tell you, but A could change. And it could change depending on what if statement you get into, depending on what conditions you follow. At some point, A might change. Is that harder to understand and reason about than me saying A is 5? Anytime you see A, it's 5. Which is easier to understand and to reason about. By reason about, I mean this. When you write code, try to run the code in your head.
I don't see why let is...
Wait. I got it. You don't know what Z is. What's A?
For me, it's harder, but if I'm
Okay, that's the point. Listen, this is very important. One of the things that you guys have to understand is that code has to be simple to understand by people. think it's important that people understand your code?
Because like today you are working on this code, tomorrow
Right.
maybe another person comes and wants to understand what you have done to continue.
Exactly. And by the way, that other person could be you. You write some code, 3 weeks later your manager says, add this feature to the code, or change the behavior, or the design changed. Or, you know, this dialogue should be bigger, or this thing should have more text in it, or things change, evolve. So you have to go back and now understand your code. It's not enough that a computer understands. You're right, a computer can understand quantum physics, like it's fine. But we're humans. And we need to be able to read and understand the code, and the goal is to make it as simple as possible. Now the idea is this: if you have to mutate A because not mutating it would result in a more complicated code, okay, now you have reason to mutate it. But the point is you should always do everything you can to not, because if you say const A is 5, now whenever you read the code, you always know A is 5. You never have to go and read the code to understand it's 5, you just know it's 5, right? Okay, so making something a constant advertises to the reader, this is always going to be true. And so understanding the code becomes that much simpler. If you say let, you're leaving the door open to, it's 5, but you never know. Read the code and maybe it'll change. Good luck. Jokes? Okay. Yes?
Is there any difference between creating that let and constant, the speed of program to create a constant or let?
Don't know. I honestly don't know. I assume no, but I don't know.
But with let, it should be slower, like runtime type checking should call it performance service.
Later, if you modify it.
Yeah.
No, but I think she's saying what happens if you, all things equal, you just do const A, 3, or let A, 3.
If you like have an int and then switch to a string, it
If you
would be-
switch, no, wait. She's saying, suppose you don't. You just do let A is 5, or const B is 5. Sorry, you may not get comment. Which is faster? And that I don't really know. But if you mutate, that causes, also there are performance hits that you take if you do mutation. Because you can change a number to a string or whatever, that's what he was saying, and that can cause some issues. Yes? Raising. Raise this way.
The get exchange rate. And if we have friends, can we remove
Get exchange rate. You mean these ones?
when we said let's go a constant?
This? Okay, what happens if I do this? What is get exchange rate? It's a function. So what this means is I'm multiplying dollars, which is 100, times a function. You can't multiply times a function, right? You have to multiply times, you call the function then returns 480. You then multiply that dollar, which is 100 times 480. If you had an argument, you would pass it here. So for example, get exchange rate, you might say get exchange rate of what? And I might say, you know, AMD dollar to AMD. And then here you might say, here's your input. And then here you might say if input is equal to this string. Hang on. Then return 480. Else, and then blah, blah, blah. You check all the other types and you euro, blah, 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 right? You guys getting this? It's making sense? Cool, all right. Let's take a photo and we'll talk more about functions next time. Come on, get in the middle.